They're all the same.
We're not talking about politics. We're talking about candidates.
Oh, they're all the same. One's the same.
Ladies and gentlemen, the jaded corner of the studio,
There you
Mr.
go,
Paul
there you go.
Roberts.
There you go. Yeah,
Table for one.
let's keep it with candidates. For all you politicians out there.
You guys know the joke about jaded table for one? That's Mr. Paul Roberts right there. He goes into the restaurant, they know. There's just one seat, one table off to the side, usually on the way to the kitchen. But yeah, no, gadfly, what do you call me?
Gadfly.
Gadfly, yeah.
Buzzing around.
Yeah. Just, avoid the blue light at all.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Okay. Although after doing this series, I don't know, maybe there will be a lot of blue lights to avoid. So again, welcome everybody. It's a new week, and boy, I mean, we're not even halfway through the month.
You got a bunch.
We got a bunch of people, and I will put the word out again. We've got some spots still open, not a lot, but I've got some spots still open until the end of the month for anybody who is running for office, anybody who's managing a campaign for somebody running for office. It's not limited to a particular thing like city council or supervisor, whatever it is. But it's limited to, let's say, Orange County.
Yeah.
But it could be regional, it could be state, it could be national, and somebody asked me today, and the in-studio interviews are one-on-one, and I'll tell you why. Because the whole purpose of why we're doing this series, for those of you guys who have listened to us last week, this is a bit of a repeat, but for those who don't, why am I doing this? Because...
Why are you doing this, Rod?
Thank you, guys. I've been... Throw me a bone, man. Work with me, people. Okay. John Dade, who's our guest today, who's also running for Buena Park City Council District 3, is a buddy and a friend. So the jokes are, it's not, I've known him for long enough, right? We share some vices that we like, such as good bourbon and cigars. And he's been on the show before. We covered his book, and like I said, we've known him for a long time. So, and Paul. So, if you hear anything from
and
the peanut and Paul, it's like the Beatles and Paul. And so if you guys hear anything from the peanut gallery, you'll understand where the source of all of that is coming from. Okay. But the reason why we do the show and why it's one-on-one interview process is because I got kind of tired about going to these candidates forums, because we don't do debates.
Right.
Candidate
Right.
forums. And the candidate forums are basically, let's say you have, especially with a district situation, you got multiple people running for a particular district. You got two districts up, you got more people. You go in there, and to be fair to the candidates, they get asked a question. What is it, John? Like a minute question, and they ask you a question, and you have 3 minutes to answer, or a minute to answer.
That's generally the format,
Yeah.
and you kind of know where it's coming from.
Right.
There's certain issues in the city that are relevant that it's going to be happening.
The question is going to be on those.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my point is, I may hear that little soundbite or that little, very abbreviated take on that particular issue when it comes to you as a candidate, but I don't get to know you. I don't get to know the candidate, right? I don't get, and everybody's busy, but I felt like we need to know who we are voting for. Those are our representatives. We're hiring you guys to basically do that job technically, right? So a 3-minute answer or a 1-minute answer on a couple of issues, the topics, narrowing down to 3 or 4 that are most important, doesn't really tell me anything about the candidate.
Exactly.
So we do the show because of that. And also actually to recognize you guys that are basically willing to step up. Because in a certain way, it's a thankless job. When you guys are,
certain ways.
Well, I'm trying to be nice, but it's one of those things where if you had a room full of 10 people, I don't know if anybody would put their hand up that I'm going to run for office,
Exactly.
right? And it's like, hey, you're going to run for office? Well, have you had that mental check a couple lately, right? Especially
It was a weak moment.
I had a weak moment, and I opened my mouth, and they're holding me to it. Damn it, right? Somebody recorded it, so I can't step back. But no, because especially in a very divisive environment that we are in including city council is supposed to be nonpartisan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there is still a lot of stuff that radiates from whether it's the national politics, whatever. And yet every candidate that's running for city council is trying to keep it focused on their district, even not even just the city, right?
Right.
So that's why we do the show, and that's why when people ask me like, "Oh, well, can I have 2 or 3 candidates?" I'm like, no. The whole point is defeated. You defeated the whole point of the show of actually giving an hour to a candidate, so that the audience has a chance to get to know them.
Exactly.
Now I know you, and so it felt safe to bring you on for that.
Oh, okay. Let's see if we can change that.
Oh no, I don't think so. I think no, and you know, in all candidness and transparency, John and I don't necessarily agree on everything, but we agree on some of the most fundamental stuff, which is basically, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we've known each other, like you said, for a very long time.
Long time.
Yeah, a long time.
Almost a decade, actually, I would say.
At least. And you know, I don't have all the answers, and you and I debate and talk about different things. We have over, you know, cigars and scotch.
But that's healthy,
and
man.
food. And that's what I like about being around you, you know, even off the air, is we can agree to disagree, still be friends, and know that we don't have all the answers.
No.
Okay? And simple as that.
Well, if we don't have the conversation, we're lost. If we and sadly we have lost the ability to have conversation about contrarian points of view.
Conversation's gone. Now it's a matter of just angry shouting and yelling and screaming, and that's not how we got to where we are as a great country, and that's not how we're going to survive.
Right. And Paul, that was an opportunity for you to plug the slogan for the radio station.
Streaming, not screaming.
It's very rare that he has a chance to do that, so I try to give him a.
Well, thank you, Paul.
Streaming, not screaming.
Yeah.
Oh, C Talk Radio. So, John, you have been very involved. You are a person that, if I had to sum it up in like just sort of the essence of you, is you're a connector. You're a person that genuinely likes people. Mm-hmm. And you have a wide circle with you, and we, like I said, we put you we had you on because, you know, I wanted to cover your book because I thought it was a brilliant way of basically mixing sort of the business acumen with sort of a social circle thing, right? And what's the title? What's the title of the book?
Is your networking
working?
Right, and basically it was just a background on building a network of business owners, executives, professionals that I could work with, that others could work with, and build relationships. It wasn't about selling or building anything else. And 15 years later, you know, it's still going strong. And
you still have your chapters in LA and San Diego?
San Diego, yes. LA, you know, after 2008 was real tough to put
with
back
the
together.
COVID,
But the other one is active in San Diego, and we're very active in Orange County.
Right, and you know, go check out John's book because it's basically building that around a passion or something that you basically enjoy.
Exactly.
And to John just said, it's not really a sales network thing. It's not a BNI. It's a different format, but it's built around gatherings and getting people together that have a shared interest in something, and then it appeals to a lot of people. In this particular case, we're talking about cigar night, business networking opportunities, and there's usually some you know, bourbon or somebody featured that's a business, and then cigars, and for those who like it. But what he was just saying about, you know, it's harder because after COVID it became much more difficult to find places where you could actually do that.
Sure. As
everybody moved their food and beverage to the outside and those areas now.
And a lot of the businesses, you know, shut down. A lot of people are working from home now. They're not really out networking and what have you. So
so we're virtually smoking cigars now. Actually, I think there was one time I thought during COVID, didn't we do a virtual
cigar networking event?
We did. I remember.
Yeah, we zoomed it, and it was great. Everybody was sitting at home drinking their favorite beverage, adult beverage, having a cigar, and we still did the networking and talked about things that went on.
So just a little bit about what sort of like where John comes from, and you are now throwing your hat in to run for city council in Buena Park.
That's correct.
You've been a long-time resident of Buena Park, right?
I've lived there a little over 30 years.
Okay.
32, 3. My wife's a lifelong resident.
Okay.
And, you know, we said earlier in the show that, you know, politics versus candidates. I'm not a politician. I really don't like politics. And, you know, I said
Stop right there. I'll vote for you.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Here's the donation number.
For people who are looking for a slogan for their campaign, I don't like politics. That's going to get you a lot of votes.
And but you brought it up is I saw things happening
Yeah.
in the city that I didn't like, and other people talked to me about it. And I've always been on the fringes, supporting different campaigns and different things.
Yeah, you're involved. I would
And-
say that you're involved. You pride yourself on being knowledgeable and aware of what's going
I
around.
try to
right?
keep on top of that
Yeah.
and stay in the mix. So when I was approached, to get involved, my initial response was no, because I hate politics. I just don't know if I can do that. I'm just a regular citizen, a business owner, a financial professional. But then they held me to the fire because I tell everybody that everything starts at the local level. And if you don't do something about it and get off your butt and do something and get involved, then you have no right to complain. So they held my feet to the fire and said, well, what are you going to do about it?
So
here I am.
so be careful what you say, because
Yes.
people will hold you to it.
They'll hold you to it.
They'll hold you to
They'll
it.
hold you to it.
Yeah.
And since I did say yes and got involved, I was amazed at the support, the emails, the phone calls, and things like that of people that I knew, through my network, were just like, wow, that's great. What can we do? How can we help? And even though it's a city council, Buena Park seat, I share with them that, you live in Irvine, you live in Costa Mesa, you live in Yorba Linda, whatever, it's all regional. And once I get elected to city council in Buena Park, I can talk to the city council members and the city managers in different cities if you have an issue, and we can work on trying to find solutions. And my campaign slogan is very simple: bring in common sense solutions and values, back to politics.
And common sense is not common these days.
No, and it's not bipartisan. I mean, it's not a partisan issue.
Common sense, no, is not.
No,
a
I mean,
yeah,
I know Democrats, Libertarians.
Yeah.
If common sense is there, it's common sense.
yeah.
And there's a lot of good people out there on both, I hate to say this, on both sides of the track, that have the right ideas. So they should be heard and have a chance to implement those ideas if they're good for the city, the country, the county, and the people and the residents.
And so I agree with you completely. And we always say that all news is the only news, or what is all news is local
All
news.
politics is local.
All
Or
politics
like
is
all
local.
news is local news, and,
Yeah.
so definitely I agree with you 100%. And I think the fact that yes, good ideas don't have an R or D monopoly. Like
No.
they come from whatever. Sometimes you need a fresh set of eyes on something. Sometimes you're too close to the trees. So it's all. There's no such thing as a bad idea, depending on where it's coming from. I think if we really stepped away from the black and whiteness of things,
Yes.
the way we address things, I think we would agree that the majority of people have the right intentions of what they want to achieve. We may differ on how
Yeah.
we get there,
And that's
or
where debate
how
comes in.
long it takes to get there,
Exactly.
and who is involved in getting there. But I don't think the desire for the final outcome, so to speak, is different. Like everybody wants safety. Everybody wants transportation corridor solutions. Everybody wants
Quality
sort of
of
an-
life in
a-
the neighborhood.
and I'll use the word affordable because that's what it really is or attainable. This is a new term that I heard last week. Attainable housing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
Instead of calling it affordable housing, and everybody goes
You
up
know,
in arms because we use the word
There is-
affordable housing.
There is no such thing in Orange County.
attainable housing.
Attainable, I
right?
like that.
Right. And so we all understand there is a situation that requires a result, right? I don't want to call it a crisis because just heightening the emotionality of a situation sometimes makes it harder to address.
Exactly.
Right? So let's just call it this, like I'll just take housing because
Okay.
it seems to be somewhat a benign, non-touchy thing. But housing, we need solutions for housing.
Okay.
It's probably, I would argue that it's probably a national situation. Definitely regional. Definitely, right? Definitely in cities like Buena Park or San Clemente or whatever, you have a bunch of realities that are causing that to happen, right? Let's talk about that for a minute
Okay.
because I want to really just kind of get your insight. You're a 30-year resident of a community. It's I think interestingly located in the overall envelope of Orange County. Buena Park is an interesting thing. It's kind of a crossroad between Anaheim
It
and
is. It's
right
That's why it's called Center of the Southland.
center of the Southland.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well,
John.
I mean, Buena Park has always been, since its beginning, kind of a bedroom community.
Yeah.
Very family-oriented community. Obviously around Knott's Berry Farm and what have you. We have the entertainment corridor now
Sure.
and things like that. But we've never strove to be or will become, a San Diego or an L.A. or a Santa Ana, which is fine. That's why people live there. They love living there. That's why I love living there.
You mean that by in terms of like being sort of overly commercialized,
Overly
or
commercialized,
like retail, and
overly built
based-
out,
Okay,
and
got
what
it.
have you. I mean, single-family homes pretty much dominate,
Yeah,
and that's great.
yeah,
And adding new housing, yes, there's an issue where we may need more housing,
yeah,
but location
yeah,
is always an issue.
yeah.
Some of the issues we have there is, they're planning 1,400 homes up to 7-story towers at the
Where-
old Buena Park Mall in the
Okay.
shopping center where Sears used to be,
Interesting.
which is not a location that you should do that. And many people agree.
Yeah.
There's surrounding areas
Yeah.
that are available and vacant,
Yeah.
okay, that would have probably been a much better choice. But, the housing issue is, I'd like to live in Emerald Cove,
Yeah.
okay, but I can't afford it.
Yeah.
So I live in Buena Park where I live.
Yeah.
There's a lot of housing and a lot of land that's reasonable
Uh-huh.
outside the Orange County area or even some of the areas of Orange County. So for the state that does not know Buena Park or Santa Ana or wherever to mandate that they have so much housing because they have an agenda,
Yeah.
I think is wrong in two ways. One, they don't know us.
Yeah.
And two, if you're going to mandate something, then pay for it. Help us pay for it. If I
Right.
told you to build, an extra room on your home so I
No,
could
there
put two people
there
in.
shouldn't be incentivization
Yeah.
to basically do that. And again, I agree with you because we have different things that probably like get under our saddle.
Sure.
In San Clemente, but the what you're describing is also appropriate and sensitive, appropriate and sensitive solutions.
Right.
And I think your community, just like a lot of other communities that have some prior zoned retail or like mall space or what have you, because of the change in the nature of retail, because of the change in nature of sales taxes, those commercial centers are not viable.
Well,
And so they need to be rethought of.
Exactly. That's the exact word. They're not viable in their current state.
Yeah.
But I look around and even with COVID and everything else going on, we have, the outlets of Orange. We have the Anaheim Packing Center. We have, downtown Fullerton, downtown Brea revitalization. With a little creativity and thinking outside the box, that center could have been part of the play and stay in Buena Park mindset.
Sure.
As a destination.
Needed to have more
As
vision.
family friendly. I mean, I envision with the spaces we had there, you could have put an indoor bowling range, an indoor archery range, an indoor axe range, maybe a K1 type go-kart, maybe a upscale restaurant with dancing or something, but something to bring families together and what have you, to revitalize that retail space. But to put, 1,400 units with 7-story towers in that area, when we are told on a annual basis we don't have enough water, we don't have electricity, we don't have enough infrastructure, just to me is not a common sense solution.
Well, I think, yeah, I agree with you, John, because like I said, even though we're in two different cities, sometimes the underlying reasons why we find ourselves in these little quagmires is because we don't have maybe the vision to look outside the box. And I think in some cases, the sort of the service provision side of it, the professional consultants or whatever, sometimes there's too much of a leaning on the fact that something was done somewhere else and it worked, so we're just going to take that and repackage it and try to sell it to this other city. And part of it is because nobody wants to take the risk. They don't want to be the first person to fail at something new, right?
True.
But if you don't have the guts to at least do that, to look
Exactly.
into that as an option, then you don't. I mean, I remember the days when when they laughed at Shaheen Sadeghi because he was doing the lab
Yeah,
on Bristol.
exactly.
And they said, no, the only way to do a commercial zoned retail thing is to do a South Coast Plaza.
Yeah. And he said,
And he said, no, I'm going to do an experiential lifestyle offering. And then all the time that they were looking at the, the packing house in Anaheim.
Mhm.
Again, outside of the box thinking,
Yes,
right? And the reality is that where we are and what we're facing as a region, as communities, whatever, there's certain things like the housing situation, mixed use. Okay, but mixed use can be many different ways.
a great look at mixed use is over by in the city of Orange, Santa Ana. You have the Main Place Mall. Across the street, you have a Mother's Market and stuff. That's mixed use. You have businesses on the bottom.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And condos on the top. And it blends in, it works, it's functional, things like that. But you hit a great point. I mean, as a council member, we have a destination place in Buena Park. We have Knott's Berry Farm, medieval, all these great things, and an entertainment corridor that leads right to the mall.
Yeah.
One of the things I would have done would have been, okay, the mall situation doesn't work now. Let's bring in business people like you mentioned from the lab, from the packing house. Let's bring big corporations in, host them, show them what we have, and say, okay, what would you do with this if we could work together?
And I would look at it as from a helicopter view.
Yes.
That whole entertainment corridor, if you address that whole entertainment corridor as its own entity, just like they're doing with the OC Vibe off the freeway, right? Next to the Anaheim Angels Stadium, and Honda Center. That's the way you go about something like this, because there's a couple of things. You're already zoned for certain allowability.
Yes.
Right? And so I guess what we're talking about is we can't put our head in the sand and ignore that we have certain issues that require solutions.
Exactly.
Right? We can't just kick the can down the road and basically say, I got to avoid this thing like it's a minefield because there's an election season going on, and then when I skate and I get through again, and I'm holding on to my lifelong share in a certain place because you and I think agree on term limits. We agree on stuff like that, right? Okay. We need those solutions. But we need to also need to have leadership that's willing to leave the side of the old pool and actually venture out to possibly look at things through different eyes.
Yeah, two heads are always better than one.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
And invite
100%.
other people to be part of that process.
Exactly. I mean, share the failure, share the glory. But at least, like you said earlier, give it a try.
I think some people actually have a hard time sharing the glory, John. And I think, you know what, you kind of touched on this. I'm just reacting to what you're saying. I love this show because of that. I love the fact that we are just in real time live. There's no real preparation. Because what you just said, yes, share the glory, god dang it. I mean, let them. I almost went there.
Did he say god dang it?
I did. Yes, I did. Was that Yosemite Sam or
God, would you please God dang this?
I just Yosemite Sam. Okay, you just never know what's going to happen on the red
Keep it
light.
awful quiet back there.
That woke me up.
I'm looking at him. You should see the look on his
He's
face.
got his finger on the red button. Beep.
Rootin' tootin' shootin'. We'll get to the shooting in a minute.
Shooting.
But honestly, yes, and those are common grounds, common sense, where we can coalesce, regardless of where we are and how we achieve it. Because here's the thing, and I've been in these meetings from the design perspective, from the sort of the developmental perspective, right?
That's your forte.
Yeah, you walk into a situation and you think you know what the solution is. And if you are headstrong and all you want to do is force your situation as being the one that is to be regarded, then you miss out on the fact that there may be some other good ideas around the table that only make your situation better.
Yeah.
Right? And so sharing the glory,
God dang it.
God dang it, is something that needs to be something that we
Shucks
do.
and by golly.
And anybody who's not, and anybody who's walking around basically wanting to take it all, right?
Yeah.
And doesn't understand that is part of their job in a leadership position, an elected position. They are there to build consensus, build collaboration, and basically lead that charge.
Exactly. Exactly. And again, it's about
God
building,
dang it!
It's about building
me to it.
consensus. Doggone it.
I saw you going for your money. I'm like, no, I'm going to shoot first.
He's in that red button again.
God dang it!
What is the District 3 look like, and has districting worked in Fullerton? Because that
how
was
are the-
very,
how's
very
the
controversial when districting started
Yeah.
taking place in all these cities. Are you just representing your neighborhood, or
Is
are
it
you
an-
still representing the city? Or does it a way to break up these power groups that had always been in power and they tended to live in one part of the city?
Yes and all. Yes and all the above. I mean,
Okay.
it has its good and bads like everything else.
Has it been a long-standing thing for Buena Park? How
No,
long
I,
have you
I
guys
think
had
I
it?
think we've been a at-large city. I mean, a
District.
district for 2 cycles, maybe 8
Okay,
years,
okay.
give or take.
Okay.
I mean, before I got involved, I really didn't, pay attention to politics. I mean, I was involved on the outskirts.
Yeah.
I'm definitely voting for you.
But but it does break up the big powers team.
Yeah.
But it also creates another problem where you kind of segregate different communities and what have you, and then they tend to vote in one direction and things like that. So it's a mixed bag.
Yeah,
What
and I
makes it
think that's
easier
how
for
I
the-
feel about it too, John. I feel
Yeah.
like we're losing a little bit of what, at least at face value, of sort of a homogeneous approach to the whole
Exactly.
town.
Exactly.
But then you can't also fault people for not wanting to take care of that thing that's in their district.
in their district, and it makes it easier for the candidates. I'll be honest. I mean, working my district versus working the entire city, cost-wise and energy-wise, is a whole different
So
ballgame.
it's
But-
different costing on the running for the
Yeah.
campaign too.
Yeah, but the District 3, to answer your question, Paul, for a grid on Buena Park, I mean, it basically runs from the Orange Shore Freeway 91
Yeah.
down to Lincoln Boulevard,
Okay.
north-south, and east-west is kind of like Knott Avenue and Dale Magnolia kind of thing.
Is
So
it
it's a nice-
mostly housing in that area?
Well, it's
Or is
interesting
it-
because it's about 2/3 housing, and the rest of it, thank God, is the entertainment corridor, which is the financial engine of the city. So I'm fortunate that I'm able to talk to the business people there and be part of that,
Right.
and whatever. But it does, there's about 10,000 residences that need to be knocked on, which we've been doing.
And what's
since-
in that entertainment corridor now? Because they
Yeah.
really have revived that.
Well, yes and no, and that's another reason I did
agree.
get involved. Number one, I think there's some major missed opportunities over the last 8 years
Okay.
on that entertainment corridor. Again,
Share some of those, John. I'm
I-
not familiar. Yeah.
Well, tell me more. Okay.
Because didn't they build something? Didn't they
No,
build
seriously,
a...
I would love to know more because I don't know the
no.
specifics.
I mean, I mentioned earlier that you don't shoot first and then aim.
Yeah.
The city over the last decade or so has bought old hotels along that entertainment corridor, which is along Beach Boulevard between Orange Thorpe and roughly Lincoln, and demolished them. They've been sitting on the vacant land. They've turned the vacant land a couple of times. They've lost money on some. They have no projects and whatever. They tried a butterfly farm on one area where the wax museum used to be. That went bankrupt. So I mean, it's just been one misstep, in my
Sounds like
opinion.
a lack of vision.
Yeah, lack of vision. One misstep after the other.
But they talked about it for somebody years ago, and they talked about how they were going to tear down some of this dilapidated old hotels and
Yeah.
stuff here,
Yeah.
and bring in. I thought they brought in Gene Simmons' rock and roll.
Well, they do have the Rock and Blues.
Rock and
That's
Blues,
the only
right.
project along there that's actually come to fruition and been
Yeah.
viable. There's 3 or 4 other vacant lots that are not. So again, it goes back to, you get the vision, you get the people together, you look at the timeline, and then you start tearing down and making vacant lots and bring
Was there
projects to fruition.
was there a pushback from the community for new commercial stuff to go in?
Not necessarily. I
okay.
mean, the community again. It's that section is kind of freestanding on its
It
own.
is. It's kind of
and
its
there's
own thing, right?
residentials
Yeah,
around
it is. Yeah.
And they get impacted by the traffic and certain things, like Halloween Haunt right now.
Yeah.
I mean, even we're impacted. We're
Yeah.
2-3, about a mile away.
Yeah.
But to the people and the residents in general, it doesn't impact them per se. It just gives them more opportunity to go out and maybe wine and dine or family entertainment and things like that.
Well, I
which
remember.
is
I mean,
great.
I was doing a project. In Stanton, and that was my sort of non-freeway corridor back down to the coast. I went through that and down all the way, because you could go all the way down to Huntington Beach
Yeah.
from that. And I remember, it's blatant the emptiness
Yes.
of that corridor.
Yes.
And it's not that it's blighted per se, but with all of that emptiness, and you're trapped between you're coming from Stanton, right? And Stanton's got all this growth that's happening, and all that, and a lot of it is driven
housing and
and assisted living and all that stuff,
yeah.
and from the 22 kind of like
Right.
and all of that is again. Price of property in relation to the rest of the county was appealing, so developers went there.
Sure.
But then you're going down, and you got Anaheim on the other side, which is like again, like you're like, oh my God, where'd all these people come from,
I
right?
know.
And you got Buena Park, and it's like glaringly empty on that corridor.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you have, Rock and Brews, like you mentioned. We have Knott's Farm, Medieval Times, Pirates, Adventure.
Yeah.
And outside of that, McDonald's and things like that, and some strip centers, you really don't have what I would consider a destination.
You don't.
Entertainment corridor.
Agree.
And there's many, I consider it lost opportunities. And more importantly, I consider it lost revenue for the city that could have been used for different projects and infrastructure and things like that, instead of the proposed 1% sales tax that's on the ballot now.
Well, and John, you raise an interesting point, because economic engines, okay, just in general, I think it would be safe to say that in Orange County, if not applicable across California probably, but definitely in Orange County, our primary economic engine tends to be real estate development.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so when you have communities that are built out, that have a not necessarily archaic, but a little bit of a too rigid a general plan that needs to be revisited. And I don't know when the last time they did that in Buena Park, but like every 20 years, I think it's up for doing. But those things may have worked as far as viable major primary economic engines in the past. But if we continue to look at them as being the same priority economic engines, they don't work the same way.
No, things change.
You got an aging population.
Yes.
You got people living in their houses. I think I pulled some stats, and it was like, I think it was like 20%, or I'll find it, but like, of residences in 57.7% of homes were built from between 1914 and 1969.
Yes.
In Buena Park.
Yes.
Okay, 31.9% of homes were built from 70 to 99. Okay, so in my calculations, it's over 80% of the homes that were built in Buena Park are between 1940s and 2000.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We're now 2024.
Right.
We're 25 years later, right? Okay, I'm going to make an assumption that a bunch of people who bought their homes are still in their homes.
Yes, and walking the neighborhood, I've talked to many people who live there 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
But those people, by virtue of profile, if they're older, okay, they don't tend to spend as much on retail sales, for example. It's a different. We need to rethink the economic engines based on the changing reality of our demographics.
Exactly.
And yet, I don't sometimes see that being done. Is it being done?
Buena Park is.
And I'm not picking on Buena Park, by the way. It's a countywide.
Buena Park countywide.
Yeah.
Buena Park first is a destination.
Yeah.
I mean, Anaheim has Disneyland.
Yeah.
It's a destination.
Yeah.
People stay weeks, whatever.
Yeah.
Buena Park can and should be the same thing. They come to Knott's Farm, this and that, what have you. So most of our revenue, I forget the exact number, but it's over probably 50%, comes from that entertainment tax money.
Yeah.
And if we increase that, it gives the tourists more reason to stay.
Sure, there's more things for them to do.
More things to spend money on.
Yeah.
And it also opens it up to those people who live in Buena Park for a while, who may have kids coming to visit.
Yep.
They can go there, and stay and spend money and do things that, the younger kids can do, and the adults can join in that have been there, older adults. Afterwards, maybe have dinner or something like that.
I'll tell you some of the stuff that comes as a byproduct necessarily of or like an organic outgrowth of some visionary projects. And if anybody drove by the packing house while it was being done, would realize that because of that, it incentivized the area to be improved. And you had, I think it was Kaufman and Broad across the street were doing townhouses before the packing house opened. because they saw what was going to happen. So here you have
And a whole bunch of other restaurants.
Yes,
popped
and a whole
up
bunch of
around it.
other
really good
restaurants.
restaurants. Yeah.
And it revitalized the older homes that were in the area.
Uh-huh. Because up till that point, the only thing that was there was the White House with Chef Bruno.
Yeah.
And Serrato, and then when that happened, it just had a ripple effect throughout the whole community. So to your point, that corridor that you guys have, which I would say is underutilized at this point, right?
I tend to agree 100%.
Is an opportunity.
And you know what? I hadn't thought about this, but now I never go to Buena Park. I don't know why it's off the beaten
Thank you.
path. And so, some of those Fullerton, Brea, Buena, the northern cities,
Yeah.
I don't. They're older part of Orange County. I don't think of going up there crossing the 91 for some reason. And if I do,
traffic being one.
traffic being one, and if I do, it's in and out to go to Knott's Berry Farm. I don't think of it as let's go stay for a weekend or let's come from out of town in the same way that, in the opposite way, that Disneyland has built an outside tourist
Exactly.
ecosystem that you come for multiple reasons and stay for a long period
Exactly.
of time.
So let's
My point exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, so John, so that's sort of economic development, economic engine, and housing. I also know there's a couple of other things that are kind of near and dear to you when and why you're running. So I don't want to run out of time and kind of shortchange you on some of that. So what are some of the other stuff that you feel that the city is either challenges or opportunities or shortcomings that are causing you to be wanting to be engaged?
Well, again, there's a number of issues. The city itself did a survey and came up with 4 or 5 different issues and knocking on doors. I mean, I've been out knocking on doors since roughly March, April of this year. And I've already completed knocking on every door in my district.
Congratulations,
personally.
that's an achievement.
And I would say probably 10% were just amazed that, wow, you're John Dade. I believe for 30 years, never had anybody come to my door.
Yeah.
So that's number one, meet, greet, what have you. And also I talked to them about the issues. The overwhelming issues, seem to be the same. The homeless issue, okay? The increase in crime that comes along with that. And I mentioned to you earlier that, Buena Park has an agreement with other cities in the area to bring the homeless there to their homeless center. So if they're back out on the street a couple of days later. So the parks, the regional parks there, people just don't feel safe taking their kids there, their family there, either being assaulted by
It's a ripple effect.
the ripple effect, okay, from the homeless, or finding drugs or needles. People go outside their home and the RVs and cars that were parked there overnight, there's trash left, there's, other unsightly things left. And these are in decent, nice neighborhoods. And it's just...
Is it a resource issue or is it an
Well,
enforcement
it's
issue?
both. It's a resource and enforcement. The Buena Park Police Department's been understaffed for a number of years. Secondly, it's the attitude...
Do you have your own department, or do you
It's our own-
subcontract to the sheriff?
No, we have the police department. The fire's contracted out to the OC Fire.
Which is challenging for a lot of cities when they have their own, in terms of budgeting and all that
exactly,
stuff, right? Yeah.
exactly. But again, hindsight being 2020,
Yeah.
I think there's some missed opportunities to generate revenue to solve the issue. But
Sure.
the whole attitude was, well, matter of fact, it was once said on one of these council members' websites that we shouldn't criminalize homelessness. And I agree 100%. I have empathy for the homeless, okay? But we should criminalize illegal activity that is criminal by the homeless. There's a
enforcement.
difference. Enforce the laws that are on
The
the
laws
books.
are on books, yeah.
But when your hands are tied and the police say, well, if I pick him up, I'll be doing paperwork and he'll still be back on the street before the ink dries because of that attitude. And again, that's not right. It's not right for the residents that live there. And we talked earlier about the options for treatment, things like that. Building 700,000 condos is not the answer to homelessness. Mental issues, drug issues, and things like this are the answers and should be addressed.
Yeah, and
secondly,
yeah.
our veterans should come first on that list.
And what John's referring to is we had a conversation before getting on the air, and we were talking about this, and yeah, I mean, I think when we paint an issue with a broad brush, and we don't look at the, if you will, the bristles of the brush, the nuances of the situation, then we basically miss out on what the truth is and what we can do about it. And you got veterans that are homeless. You got people that are seniors that are one medical bill away from basically being, destitute because of the financial impact.
Absolutely.
Right? You got communities that are aging. This is not something that one town can say, "Oh, I'm going to put my head in the sand and ignore," because it's going to affect everybody. Over, I think 25% of the population of Orange County is going to be 65 or older by 2030. So I don't know what city you're in, what city you're sitting as city council on, but you ain't going to avoid this issue, right?
It's coming.
So be proactive versus reactive when it hits you like a tsunami. Okay, but when it comes to this, like homeless, okay, so if we take a broad brush and paint all the homeless people as being, they're all drug addicts, nobody wants to basically be helped, they're all basically a pain, we release them, they're back at being a problem, we miss the fact that you've got veterans that are homeless, you got women women with kids that maybe are homeless, that maybe are part of a battered situation or something. You can't ignore those people. They actually want to be helped in order to not be stuck in their situation.
Exactly.
And veterans is a perfect one for us to coalesce around.
I mean, they give it all for the country.
Yes.
And we turn our back on them.
Yes.
And we
have a really bad habit of doing that.
We have, well...
let's not go back.
But
but we have a really bad habit of doing that.
But they should be given priority, along with the single parents and things like that. That should be the focus and the priority with all the funds. I mean, I forget, we talked about earlier, the $47 billion that was spent on homelessness, and we've got zero accountability and more homeless to show for it.
Because it's not a sustainable solution.
It's not a sustainable solution.
And it needs to be.
It needs to be, and we need to prioritize it and put together a coalition of people that can make that decision on, okay, veterans first, let's help them, let's help the homeless and the single parents.
Seniors,
and the other people that refuse and don't want help, because they went through that situation where they tried to homeless in different hotels and things like that, and they were told flat out, I don't want to be here. I want my freedom. I want my drugs. I want my whatever. Or they were just mental in the beginning, and you can see it. Okay,
they need a different kind of help.
They need a different kind of help.
Yeah.
Okay, and that should be a priority. And there's ways of doing it. I think the funding's there. If we spend all that money and got no results, I think the funding's there.
Well, and one of the other things we talked about and we both agreed on, and it was something that was brought up again by another candidate that was running, that's running for re-election, and that these solutions should not be burdened on one city alone. But in order for it to be a regional solution that's sustainable, you need to have working relationships between people and willingness for people to actually come to the table to find a regional sustainable solution.
Exactly. And accountability for the funds. Back to the funds. I mean, California is being audited for how many billions, and we got LA, California, and zero results.
Can I ask one other question?
Well, accountability across everything. We seem to be lacking in personal accountability.
I did an equation.
Question about homelessness.
Yes.
Sat in this chair for years, heard a million people come through and talk about it. Is it require a large regional center that everybody contributes to and ships people to? Or should it be lots of local neighborhood centers, in which case you get lots of people saying, not in my neighborhood?
Well, again, not in my neighborhood, number one. I think every city, I mean, I know in Buena Park, if we go north Buena Park, where, freeway areas, there's areas up there that are commercial, residential, industrial, that are vacant and available.
Yeah.
And it's not surrounded by a neighborhood.
Right.
But to answer your other question, Paul, again, regional, I think, is a great idea. I mean, the people go, gee, but you can't send them to prison, and it's not a prison. Okay? If we had resources in a regional center, they all go to one place. First off, it gets them out of the neighborhoods. Secondly, it puts them in a place where they have facilities for medical, for mental
support,
and
drug
addiction,
rehab,
things like that.
Yeah.
Where these people can stay and be treated. And I'm sorry, if you're
training,
job training, and have them
job
do
placement.
something there.
No, absolutely.
Because weren't they going to build a big regional center in Fullerton or someplace? There was some discussion at one point.
There was some discussion, and again, I think it was an industrial commercial area, not necessarily impacting the housing. But those kind of facilities, you may think of, oh, gee, it sounds to me like a prison.
Right.
But quite frankly, it's an area where if people are breaking the law and refuse to abide by the existing laws in society today, they need to be placed in somewhere where they can be helped and treated and become productive citizens of society and before they're put back in.
And that right there is where we all agree in helping people and being effective at helping people.
Yes.
Now, the number of people that will refuse that help, the number of people that absolutely don't want it,
Yes.
I don't think that's the majority. If I had to guess it, I would say that that's the exception rather than the rule.
I think you're 90% correct.
Right, and in a lot of cases, we have this approach or this thought about homeless as being the other. They're sometimes those homeless, and I know this from San Clemente, sometimes those homeless are like long-term residents. There's sometimes that they're not necessarily from somewhere else. So again, not all of them, but there's some of those in that mix, and we shouldn't somehow throw them out because we have this general approach of something. And to Paul's question about regional or local,
Regional
Paul?
versus local.
Yeah, but I disagree with the fact that it's an either or solution. I think you need the regional, and I'll tell you why. You need the regional because you need leadership in guiding and coordinating efforts. And when you go local, it doesn't necessarily have to be a local shelter. You have a lot of nonprofits. You have family assisted ministries.
Yes.
You have women's battered women's shelters.
Yes.
You have things like that could become, and that are already accepted in those communities.
Right.
That
Exactly.
could become part of the chain, part of the links that
And even
actually
the
provide a regional solution.
And even the final link where they do the big regional.
Yeah.
And once they get to a position where they're acceptable into the community,
Yeah.
they could be placed in those units for an outplacement and a job.
Correct.
And-
It acts as an internal
Yes.
and an outplacement. If but what we're lacking, and I think because a lot of people work with this in a siloed mindset, we are a society that seems to want to get siloed. You cannot do that and find sustainable solutions on
Correct.
things like this.
Correct.
Housing, homelessness, economic engines. I mean, some cities are better off than others, but we're all facing a built-out scenario.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you need leadership that's willing to go there.
Right. And deal with that situation again. A coalition of people who want to find solutions as opposed to people who want to, further their own agenda.
Yeah.
But
Simple as
is
that.
there enough concerted level of cooperation, connection, communication between 34 different cities to come up with one regional solution?
Well, I think there
Do
could
they all
be.
would they all agree? Would they all contribute money?
Well, there's right now.
Who
you're-
volunteered
On a
to
smaller
host it?
level,
it's-
on a smaller level, they are. I
Yeah.
mean, there's 4 or 5 cities that surround Buena Park
Right.
that actually pay an annual fee to have their homeless shipped to the Buena Park Navigation Area Center as part of their homeless solution. So I think on a broader scale, if we get out of the silo, like Rod mentioned, and propose that and bring those together and show that there is interest in funding, I think it's
Your
certainly
only
doable.
personal agenda as a person sitting in city council in any of these cities in Orange County should be to work on a sustainable solution that benefits your community, but
Yes.
benefits your community at large also as a county.
Yes.
If you have personal agenda items, part of that, and this is the reality of life, is where some of this stuff starts to break down.
Right.
Because I'll tell you, you don't have to agree on everything.
No.
But we all are facing the realities of these things, and kicking the can down the road doesn't make any difference because it's almost like a debt. Now you got more interest you got to pay on it.
Exactly.
And so yeah, and I think there is, Paul. I think there is, because I think the majority of people, and this is why, when I said one of the other things that we do with the show is that we want to basically recognize that the people that are stepping up and wanting to basically take on that role of public service, okay, in an elected situation. I mean, who the hell puts themselves and their families to friggin' run for a seat these days? I mean,
don't know.
good Lord.
I don't know. That's why
Are you a glut for punishment
I'm
or some
telling you.
sort of masochist? Right. But I think a lot of the people, they're doing it because their heart is in the right place. There just needs to be some risk unaverse leadership that's willing to look at things differently. Because without that, we're just repeating the same scenarios over and over and over.
And that's
And I
why
think-
people think it's all the same. We're not. We're too many cities are just recycling these things without really
right.
reimagining them.
And again, I think if it hasn't been proposed, okay, then once it is proposed, to your question, Paul, that we'll find out
Yeah.
who's serious about
Yeah.
Yeah.
correcting the problem, not only in their city and their county,
Oh, imagine
statewide.
that being a litmus test of whether
Can I,
you get
can I
elected
throw
or
one
not.
last bomb into the thing here right before we end here?
Okay.
Rod used to say years ago, and I thought this was, I'd never heard anybody say it since. There is, on a certain level, among the political class, a desire not to solve these because there's a hell of a lot of money spent studying
Oh,
them,
don't get me-
researching them, consulting. Well, if you take these issues off
Well,
the
it's
table,
the same reason
Don't
why
get me
we
started
continue to
there.
have. Well, it's the same reasons I've said. Basically, there is no profit in peace, and that's why we don't have it, right?
Well, we can go on.
Right. So I don't want to go down that road.
I mean, how much money is
Paul-
spent studying these things
Paul,
and consulting?
I agree with you 100%. I mean, I'll give you a quick example. If I
Term
have-
limits,
If I,
campaign funding reform.
if I have 2 minutes, I give you a
Yes.
quick example. Walk in the neighborhood, in my district.
Right.
I won't name anything, but the residents are tired of people speeding up and down their street
Yes,
at
another
60
one, yeah.
miles an hour.
Exactly.
And they've gone to the city for 5 or 6 or 7 years to get speed humps, not bumps. There is a
Right.
difference.
Right.
At least 2 in that 1 mile
You
corridor.
learned it here, ladies and gentlemen.
to-
There's
to-
a difference
to-
between humps and bumps.
Yeah, and your car will tell you if you don't know.
Yeah.
To slow those cars
Yeah.
down, and the streets are narrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you park on both sides of the street, there's just enough room for 2 cars to go down.
Right.
6, 7, 8 years. Okay, they finally had a community meeting where some of the council came, and we'll make
Some
it
of the
short.
council came.
We'll make it short. The bottom line was they had a consultant there, and the whole thing was an hour. And the bottom line was the consultant wanted to have a consultant look at it, gather the information, give it to a forum, come up with some ideas,
Traffic studies.
and
everything
yada yada yada. And it could cost between $150,000 and $200,000 to get it done, and it will get done in maybe 4 years for 2 speed humps.
Yeah.
When everybody in the, from the population
You and I
was
could
there,
go out and do it in
was
the
there,
afternoon here.
a couple of engineers so they could put it in for
That concrete
$10,000.
dumped into the street. Oops.
A couple of guys that are engineers that live in the neighborhood said we could do it for 10 grand
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah.
So the whole process, to your point, Paul, was yes, unless somebody's getting greased and there's a lot of money in it, we'll kick it down the road. Homelessness has been with us for how long? We spent how many billions? And it's even worse. That tells me they're not looking for solutions.
You know how long we've had homelessness? And Paul, you can look it up maybe while we're wrapping up. Anybody go to the web and just look up homelessness in the United States. Wikipedia will tell you how long we have been dealing with the concept of homelessness.
I think we used to
Okay.
call them bums or tramps,
Yeah,
or vagrants, or
yeah.
gypsies or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
And the answer used to be we picked them up and we took them over to the other city and we dumped them off.
and guess what we're doing? We're still
Thank-
friggin'
yeah.
doing. You think it
Things don't
hasn't
change.
worked?
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, you couldn't run.
We don't mean. I don't mean to make levity of it. But
No.
yeah.
No,
It's-
but I mean,
it's a serious
well,
situation.
they do say all comedy is based in pain, right?
Yeah.
So we're laughing because otherwise we'd
Because of the
cry,
pain, yeah,
right?
exactly.
But I think you wouldn't run a company without basically having benchmarks of success.
Yes.
Annual reviews.
Yes.
Okay? Not because anybody's going to get kicked or lose their job, but just so you know that if your efforts are leading to some positive outcome
Yes.
or that you need to adjust them.
Yeah.
Right?
Just like you don't get in your car and go to, whatever without a map.
Right.
Well, I'm going to jump in the car and I'm going to go to, Nebraska.
Oh, my Thomas guide is still in
Boom.
the site.
And yeah, it's just like
No, it's
you
good.
just
Yeah.
don't do it. You
Right.
need a roadmap for life. You need
Right.
a roadmap for projects. to get
Actually,
done.
I'll tell you. Let's build on that analogy for a second,
Uh-oh.
right? No. Let's do that because here's the thing.
Okay.
Back in the day, and I used to Thomas Guide, like for all of those, or
I have one in my
Rand
trunk.
McNally
I
or
have one in
whatever,
my
right?
tru- I have one in my trunk right now.
Okay. So back in the day, we knew that we needed assistance to get to our destination.
Yes.
Right? And we knew that we needed to do that in a form of a book. For anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about with Thomas Guide or whatever, go look it up. Okay, it's probably under some sort of historical
Ancient history.
archives or something, right?
Ancient history.
But basically, we had these large-sized books where we flipped through. Now imagine. Yeah, and I'll admit I did it while I was driving, but you needed to almost like in advance look at the route that you needed to take,
Yes.
Yeah.
write it down,
Yes.
learn it before you got in the car to drive.
Exactly.
Okay, so the reason why I'm mentioning that is because we knew we needed to achieve a goal.
Yes.
We prepared to achieve a goal,
Yes.
and it required some effort and pre-planning.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
Today, we get in our car and we ask Google Drive or whatever
Yeah.
to give us the destination. And if it doesn't notify us audio voice
We end up in a
before we get before when we get to the stop sign to turn left,
Yes.
we will shoot the stop sign and go right through
Exactly.
because we're dependent on somebody else to do the work for us.
Exactly. I don't even turn mine on.
Okay, so there's the analogy, right?
I love it.
Okay, we need to basically prepare proactively
Yes.
to take care of something. And we have a multitude of data that says some of the things that we've been doing isn't working.
Yeah, for decades, maybe.
So maybe
Pretty
it's
good
not-
anecdotal
maybe it-
evidence when you walk around the neighborhood.
Right,
Hey, look at
maybe,
that.
maybe. Well, I mean,
Don't step in that.
I mean, John just said it, right? John just said it, and this is kind of like I'm not surprised, but it still astounds me every time a candidate's sitting here saying it. We've had 4 candidates, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think we kind of covered that a little bit with John Stevens because he was kind of running for re-election. But people that are running for election for the first time, you're like the 3rd person, I think, or 4th person we've had on. I think every single person, John, has said, I'm knocking on doors, and people are surprised that somebody's coming to talk to them.
And many of these issues, like the woman.
And that's across the county. Like, we've had people from a couple of different things.
Yeah.
And they're like,
and they're all talking about
we're
issues.
surprised that there were people that knock on doors, and people are surprised that I'm coming over to talk to them because
And they're
people
always
have
talking
not.
about issues that have been around for a while. These aren't new issues. This
Exactly.
isn't something. Maybe the development of Brea Mall is, but most of these are generational issues that have been around for decades.
Exactly. And again, that's just me. I mean, I come from a restaurant background for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Financial services for
Yeah.
almost 30.
Yeah.
Networking, for 15, my networking group. It's just a matter of face-to-face, person-to-person, looking somebody in the eye, shaking their hand and going, how can I help you? Listening, writing it down, and then they remember that when you come back. Oh, yeah, you were here. So, yeah, and you had this issue here.
So simple. If somebody wants to join in the fight, if they want to help you in any way,
How do they
learn
find out more
you,
about your
yeah.
campaign, John?
Well, basically, you can go to my website.
There's
I
a
don't know if
website.
that's a little thingy bob there, but you can go to the
I
web.
think
You can go to the website. The Dade for BuenaPark3.com.
Dade,
DADE.
Date for Buena Park.
FOR Buena
the number
Park
3.
3.com.
Yeah.
And
Do
you
they
can
get a
email me.
cigar if they join up or anything?
Well, I'll
you
be
brought
happy
some
to
cigars.
meet. I'll be happy to meet them for a cigar and a scotch if they want to discuss. RAAD and I are long overdue.
Maybe he'll share one of those with me afterwards. But yeah, and I think we need more people that are basically willing to reach out.
Walk, talk, and listen.
And actually, listen more than talk, actually.
Well, yeah.
You get 2 ears, 1 mouth kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
I
is
like
really
that.
funny to say on a podcast.
Would you quit talking so I can listen?
I'm going to shut up now. But no, I think I'm glad to see you do it, buddy. I really do. And I think Buena Park is lucky to have you care enough to basically throw your hat in the ring. And I think, we need that new blood.
How many are running in?
How many are
District
running
3?
in your district?
Well, there's three seats open.
So you have three districts that are.
Well, the 3 districts are up for election.
Yeah.
But in your
one-
district, how many?
I'm running against the incumbent.
Okay.
This is only just me.
Okay.
And how long's the incumbent been there?
4 years up for re-election. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll
leave it at that.
I think that speaks. Leaving it at that also speaks volumes about who you are. So I think we will leave it at that as well, and we will wrap up the show. Thanks, buddy, for being here.
Oh,
I wish
thanks
you
for
luck
the-
on your campaign,
Thanks for the
seriously.
invite. I mean, it's been a while. I miss talking to you.
Likewise.
And hopefully we can do this with a mic off and enjoy a cigar. And a
Yeah,
scotch
absolutely. And
And we can even bring Paul along. If
Well, and Paul.
let's not get crazy.
And
I'm
Paul.
open to new ideas, but not that much. Okay. I mean, when you know where the minefield is, you avoid it. But
Ouch.
and well, hey, listen, I've known you probably a little bit less
known a little longer.
shorter than John.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, date for Buena Park, the number 3.com. Go check out John's platform. Nice job on the graphics and the graphic package. Whoever did that for you.
Well, I
was really
appreciate
nicely done.
that.
Yeah.
That was my team that has helped me along the way, and
Very
really
nice.
grateful to have them.
Yes, and Get to know John, man. Reach out to him. He's always a he's good people.
I will return your call. I will return your email.
He always does, and he's good people. So we need more people like you running, man. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for
having
being
me
here.
on board.
Yep, absolutely. And we will be back tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow again?
I'm in your ear again tomorrow.